This was a very big day for free and fair trade. Very big day indeed.
Worries of an escalating transatlantic trade spat eased as the two leaders met. Despite tweeting his tough stance on trade on Tuesday, the US president called the economic relationship with the EU the largest in the world.
We want to further strengthen this trade relationship to the benefit of all American and European citizens. This is why we agreed today, first of all, to work together towards zero tariffs, zero non-tariff barriers, and zero subsidies on non-auto industrial goods.
The two sides have agreed to discuss putting planned tariffs on hold, which includes US levies on EU cars. They will also reduce duties on EU steel and aluminium products the US imposed in March, and reverse retaliatory EU tariffs on US products like Harley-Davidson motorcycles and bourbon. And the EU has agreed to increase trade with the US in a number of sectors, including energy, agriculture, and pharmaceuticals.
The EU will build more terminals to import liquefied natural gas from the US. This is also a message for others. We agreed to establish a dialogue on standards. As far as agriculture is concerned, the European Union can import more soybeans from the US, and it will be done.
That will bring relief to soybean farmers, who have been hurt by an 18% drop in prices in the last 2 months due to trade tensions. While many US and EU businesses have praised the reconciliation, the World Trade Organization continues to warn countries against putting up trade barriers on each other.
Our concern above anything is that this dynamic of an eye for an eye or tit for tat or whatever you call it, it may be perceived as the new normal.
For now, the US and EU have shown they can reach a consensus without going down that path. Laila Humairah, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Bart Gordon. He's in Washington, D.C. He's the U.S. Director at the Transatlantic Business Council, an association representing companies headquartered in both the EU and the U.S. Bart, great to have you on Money Talks. Your council represents some big names, including the likes of Audi, BASF, KPMG in Europe, American firms like Chevron, ExxonMobil and Pfizer. How have companies like these been affected by the US-EU trade war so far?
Well, all large companies have large supply chains. And so they've all been affected one way or the other. And they're very concerned about the so-called trade war. And I think that we're all relieved that an agreement to at least start discussion happened yesterday. And I had a fascinating conversation just a couple of hours ago with Ambassador Sondland, who is going to be the new U.S. ambassador to the U.S. mission in Brussels. He was very positive. He was a part of the pre-discussions, the White House discussions, and the post-discussions. He is talking about trying to get something done not in years, but rather in months. He is, and the administrations are ready to go. So I think hopefully we're going to see some real action. Now, I'm afraid that there'll probably be some posturing along the way, and it'll be uphill and downhill, but I think they're all trending in the right direction and recognize that it's really to the benefit of the U.S. and the EU to come together with some agreements. Together, we're half of the world's GDP, and quite frankly, we all have the same problems with China in terms of whether they're stealing our IP or locking us out of the market. So there's a common reason to work together.
Right. You mentioned China. That's really the nub of the issue, isn't it? Do you think this agreement between Jean-Claude Juncker and Donald Trump is going to finally bring the US and the EU together and work on those common purposes against China?
Yes, I mean, it is the common denominator. And I'm glad that the administration now recognizes that we need to work with our friends in a unified way to set, as they mentioned, higher standards so that we don't have to dumb down to Chinese or other low-income countries' standards to be able to get into their markets.
But this agreement between the two sides basically kind of brings us back to square one, really, when Donald Trump decided that he wasn't going to be part of TTIP, really, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, it's like playing it again. I don't think this is going to be as comprehensive as TTIP. I think that it may be, maybe a little more narrow. I think that it will be maybe some high points and you fill in the lines later. But it is, once again, it goes back to the fundamental reason for TTIP was to harmonize our standards, to reduce barriers so that it would make both countries have a higher productivity, and at the same time, it would be really setting the de facto standards for the world. Right. If our two the U.S. and the EU got together on standards, then they will be the standards for the world.
Okay, but very quickly, almost out of time, but do you think this agreement that they've sort of outlined today, yesterday is going to fly with the World Trade Organization, because it probably might contravene a lot of their rules?
Well, that's something they're going to have to deal with along the way. I think they're prepared to move forward and do whatever's necessary.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. Bart Gordon from the Transatlantic Business Council, thank you.